Have you ever really thought about what you'd do if you were suddenly on your own, out in the wild? Well, today, we're cutting through all the noise and getting right back to the absolute basics. We're going to explore the core principles of survival, the kind of knowledge that's kept humans alive for thousands of years. Let's get right into it.
So just picture this for a second. You're lost, you're alone, and you have none of your modern tools or gadgets. No phone, no GPS, not even a lighter. It is just you against the elements. So how would you survive? It's a huge question, right? But the answer is actually way simpler than you might think. You see, the real key to survival isn't about having the latest, most expensive high-tech gear. It's all about what you know. And specifically, it really just boils down to understanding and mastering 4 fundamental pillars. These are the things that have kept us going for millennia. Okay, let's dive right in with your most immediate and critical priority: shelter. Seriously, before you even think about water or food, you have got to protect your body from the elements, because exposure, it can take you out of the game faster than literally anything else.
So what is it that turns just a random spot in the woods into a life-saving shelter? Well, it's definitely not about building some fancy log cabin. It's about meeting a few really critical requirements to protect your body's core temperature. That's the whole game. The best way to think about your shelter is like your own personal microclimate. Its one and only job is to protect your core temperature. That means blocking the wind and rain, getting you up off the cold ground, and making sure you're in a safe spot. And here's a tip that might seem a little backward. Smaller is better. A really tight space is a warm space when your body is the only thing generating heat. And really, when it comes down to it, you've got 2 main options. You can either find some ready-made natural cover, like a small cave or the space under a big fallen tree, or you can just build your own. A simple lean-to shelter propped against a rock or a debris hut that's just piled high with leaves, both can be incredibly effective at trapping your body heat and keeping you dry. All right, let's move on to the next critical piece of the puzzle. Once you're protected from the elements, your body's next big demand is water. Most people can only survive about 3 days without it, but the serious problems from dehydration, they start setting in much, much sooner.
But here's the real challenge. It's not just about finding any water. Drinking contaminated water can make you incredibly sick, which in a survival situation can be an absolute death sentence. So how do you make sure that what you're drinking is actually safe? Your lifeline is the simple 3-step process. First, you've got to find a source. Always look for moving water or try to collect rainwater. Second, filter out all the visible gunk. The dirt and leaves, maybe using a piece of your shirt. But the most important step is number 3. Purification. You have to kill all those invisible germs, and boiling is the absolute most reliable way to do that. Now, what's really useful here is learning how to spot the difference between a good source and a bad one. A running stream is always going to be a better bet than a stagnant pond, which is basically a breeding ground for bacteria. You have to trust your senses. If it looks bad or smells funky, it probably is. But always remember, even the clearest, most beautiful mountain stream needs to be purified. Okay, so you've got a roof over your head and a safe water source. Now you can turn your attention to the absolute game changer of survival: fire. Fire gives you warmth, a way to purify water, a way to cook food, protection from predators, and just a massive psychological boost. In a survival situation, that phrase isn't just some dramatic saying, it is the absolute truth. The warmth and the light from a fire can fight off hypothermia and push back the darkness. And that provides a sense of hope and control that is just so critical for your morale. Making fire isn't magic. It's just science. And it all comes down to the classic fire triangle. You need fuel, and you have to think about it in stages. You need tiny, fluffy tinder that catches a spark easily, then slightly larger kindling, and then your main firewood. You need a source of heat, like a spark or friction. And so crucially, you need oxygen. You have to let your fire breathe, or you'll just smother it before it even gets started. Okay, let's move on to our final pillar: food. Now, I want you to notice this is last on the list, and that's on purpose. While food is definitely important for long-term energy, you can actually survive for weeks without it. You should only really focus on food after your immediate needs for shelter, water, and fire are totally met. The wilderness can feel like a giant buffet, but it can also be a minefield. The challenge is figuring out how to get calories that are going to help you, not hurt you. Because misidentifying a single plant can have absolutely disastrous consequences. So your 2 most accessible food groups are probably going to be plants and insects. Now for plants, you must be 100% certain of what you're eating. The rule is simple: when in doubt, leave it out.
Insects, on the other hand, are a fantastic and really abundant source of protein. Just make sure you cook them thoroughly to kill any parasites.
So, the most crucial point to take away from all this is the order of operations. This is not just a random list, it's a priority plan. Shelter comes first to protect your body. Water is next to stay hydrated. Fire is third for warmth and safety. And then, finally, food for that long-term energy. This right here, this is the foundation of survival.
At the end of the day, survival isn't really about the fancy knife or the fire starter you have in your pack. It's about what you have in your head. The skills and the knowledge to take care of these 4 pillars, that's the most powerful tool you could ever possess. So the real question isn't what you would bring with you, it's, are you prepared to learn?